That's all the Polish I know, so the rest of this presentation will be in English. I have been told to speak very slowly, so I hope this will not take too long, maybe just a couple of hours. My name is David Bentley. I work for a company called Spengler Fox at Grafton. I'll explain the difference between our two brands in a moment, but I'm here to speak for maybe the next 30-40 minutes about getting hired to international IT companies. What we'll be covering today: who we are, who Grafton and Spengler Fox are, where we work. The global aspect is very interesting. Goal setting, deciding what you are looking for, what you want, what employers are looking for. Some notes on salaries, how to use an agency like Grafton. I hear there may be some other ones on the market as well. Some notes on the CV, on the interview, and on the hiring process generally. I will be available to answer any questions afterwards, but if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please just raise your hand and I will try to answer you. Okay, first of all you have to sit through the advertising. Grafton Recruitment, we're an international company. We have 19 offices around the world. We're an Irish company, established about 25 years ago. We take quality very seriously. We're ISO 9002 accredited. We've won twice the Queen's Award for Enterprise. This is a British governmental award in recognition of our business success and our development worldwide. We have 750 staff. We payroll about 7,000 people every month. These are people who are employed by Grafton, who are paid by Grafton, but are working on-site with our clients. And every year we make about 7,000 permanent placements. So these are 7,000 people who find regular jobs through Grafton. Turnover was 160 million euro last year. We're wholly owned, we're not a franchise. That means all our offices report to the same bosses, so whether you're talking to us in Warsaw, or Wrocław, or Prague, or Bratislava, you're assured of the same level of service. And a note between our two brands. Grafton is for contingency recruitment, contractors, and managed services. Basically, for you guys, what this means is Grafton collects CVs from advertising, from the net, and they will work with their database to find positions for their candidates. Spengler Fox is executive search. That means we work on the more senior positions, the managers. We don't really advertise, we don't collect CVs. When you are good enough, when you are senior enough, we come and find you. Our coverage, because it's a very, very globalized market now, what I'm going to say in this presentation is not specific to Poland. It has examples from CEE, from Ireland, from the UK, but as you can see, we're working in a very international market, and the comments I make are generally about international companies. I think you will find it's the same for most places. The red locations are where we actually have an office, so that's 19 offices so far. The grey locations are where we have done work, so that's almost most of the world. We're still working on America, but that's a little bit difficult. And all our offices, as I said, are working to the same standards. Okay, so the advertisement is over, so let's continue. Now, this I think is very important, especially if you're at the stage of starting to look for a job, if you're starting to look for your future career. Setting your own goals, deciding what you want to do. What sort of work would you like to spend the next couple of years doing, maybe the rest of your career doing? Coding, programming, consulting, which is more working directly with customers, trying to find out what they want, what they need. Selling, I think, is obvious. Pre-sales, there's a lot of demand for good pre-sales people. This pre-sales means working with salespeople and with customers to find out what they should buy, trying to define their needs, the parameters of what they should do. Good pre-sales people are hard to find because they have to understand the technology, they have to understand the business, they have to be good at both. Marketing, This is not about advertising, but assessing the offering that your company has, how much it should charge, what the competition are doing. So these are different types of roles that are available out there in the market. And then what's your motivation? This is maybe even more important. This will help you find the right job. What are you looking for? Technical expertise? In 5-10 years' time, do you want to be one of the best guys in Europe for active networking, enterprise software, whatever? Are you looking for travel? Do you want to travel around the world? It's a very globalized market, and many of my clients these days are not interested in hiring somebody because they're Polish, because they're Hungarian, because they're American. They're looking for the best person to do the job. Money is always a question that comes up in the process. In my opinion, there's too much attention on salaries during the recruitment process, but it's the most easily quantifiable. But you have to decide your own price. Are you looking for something exciting? Are you looking for something secure? One thing I will say though is you have to decide what's most important for you, because you will never find a job, in my opinion, that will give you everything you want. The next part of setting your goals is thinking about what you can offer. What are you going to take to employers? What are you selling to them? Because it is a market. It is a commercial process. There are two parts to this. Your hard skills. Hard skills means things that are easily measurable, that are quantifiable, that are testable. What hard skills do you offer? Are you offering strong technical knowledge of particular platforms, particular technologies, particular devices? Where do you feel your skills are strongest? And what do you enjoy working with? Market sector. What parts of the market do you want to work in? Is finance interesting for you? Entertainment? Large enterprise? Defense? If you work in a sector that's personally interesting for you, it's going to be much more enjoyable, much more interesting, and frankly, you'll have a better future. And languages. More and more important, especially English. I know it's easy for me to say this because I am English, but to get a job in a large corporation, like the sponsors of this school, if we're talking about the Microsofts, the Intels, the HPs, for most positions I would say English is very basic. English is a standard requirement the same way as knowing Microsoft Outlook or something like that will be. Soft skills. This is also very important, as we'll come to in a moment. Soft skills are those aspects of your makeup, your personality, which are maybe less easy to measure, maybe more personal. How well do you communicate? What's your empathy? This is very, very important for sales or commercial positions. Do you understand other people? Do you understand what other people want? Responsiveness. Can you react to problems? Can you deal with them? Time management, very basic. So these are all important things you need to think about and be honest in assessing your own skills in this area. Excuse me. What are employers looking for? What do employers buy when they go out shopping for candidates? Some interesting information here. This is from a survey that Microsoft did, I think about 18 months ago, on what are the key things that companies are looking for when they hire. Number one was teamworking and interpersonal skills. This is key, because the definition of a company in English just means a group of people. If you can't work with other people, if you can't communicate, if you can't work as a team, then you will have problems. Initiative. Most companies aren't looking for somebody who just waits for instructions. They need people who know their area of operation, people who know what they can do and what action they can take to solve problems. Analyzing and problem solving. Companies not interested in problems. As a manager, I'm not interested in problems. I don't have time for problems. I'm very interested in people who can find solutions. So solutions are really key. Verbal communication, I think, is obvious. Personal planning, organising. Flexibility. And number 7 is ICT skills. Now, this is maybe not so relevant for you guys because I would predict many of you will go on to work in technical positions. ICT is information and communication technology. So that would cover classical technology, IT, plus also areas like networking and telco, for example. So this is number 7 on the list of what companies are looking for. It's predicted to go higher. It will become more important in the future, but this is what companies are looking for right now. Other aspects, commercial awareness, an awareness of how much things cost, an awareness that the company has to make money, and that it's the clients who bring the money and ultimately your salaries to the company. Creativity, people who can bring new ideas. Written communication. I think this will probably get more important as more and more of our communication about business is conducted by email or messaging. Empathy, again. And numerical reasoning. These are all the basic qualities that employers are looking for in their people. In terms of the technology and skill sets that companies are looking for, the information I'll show you now is a snapshot of the current market over the last, say, 6 to 12 months. One note about any information or any numbers in this presentation: this information goes out of date as fast as it can be tracked. It will always be changing. You always need to keep an eye on this. But as of the end of 2007, in the UK, huge demand for help desk people. Enormous demand, up 45%, especially for CRM and ERP. So this is a very strong area right now. Developers are in demand. Business analysis. This is an area I'll speak about more in a moment. Network support. Project management was also up a lot last year, which surprised me a little bit, but I think this is driven by the fact there are new versions of Windows and Oracle coming onto the market. This is probably also why there's such big demand for help desk right now. These are new products coming to the market that companies are rolling out and implementing. I think especially with CRM and ERP, these are usually quite long projects to implement into companies, which means there's less availability of people on the market at any one time. Technical sales support, I think, is always going to be needed. And IT management skills, especially for systems, storage, and networks. In my opinion, I think storage will be a very interesting area for the future because the amount of data is always going to be going up. Technologies that people are hiring right now: Java, J2EE, all the different flavors of C, HTML, XML, Oracle, SAP. Demand for this seems to be going back up. A couple of years ago it seemed to be fading away, it's back up now. VMware, the whole virtualization piece, seems to be attracting a lot of interest at the moment. And .NET. A note about salaries. Again, this information goes out of date very fast. Please use this just as a guide, and these numbers are drawn mostly from the UK and Ireland. At the moment, they will be something like maybe 30% lower within the CEE. But just a few examples. If anyone's interested in actually a particular job, I didn't put every possible job and every possible salary on here. The presentation would take all day. But ask me afterwards if you're interested. I will have the data. So a few examples. Developers with about 0 to 2 years experience. Obviously it's going to vary whether it's a big software house or maybe a small boutique company. But a new developer in the UK can expect to earn between about 23,000 and 33,000 euro. A year, not a month. Business systems analyst. Not a very senior position, but can earn nearly twice as much as a developer. The reason for this is fairly straightforward. A developer obviously has to know his code, he has to know .NET, C# or whatever. A business systems analyst will have to know the technology, but he also has to know the business in a lot of detail. He has to be able to speak both the business of technology and the business and the language of business as well. So this person will have basically two sets of skills. They can command much higher salaries. First line help desk, around 22,000. Second level, slightly higher, 30,000. And then third level, 35,000. I think it's fairly obvious that the more experience a person gets, the higher the value they have in the market becomes. They have more technical experience. If you can continuously develop this technical experience, that's a very good idea, because you are always as strong as new people who are coming into the market, and your skills will not become obsolete. Nobody hires Fortran programmers anymore. So if you graduated 20, 30 years ago, to get a job now, you would have had to work very hard to develop yourself. In the UK at least, salary growth is fairly stable, about 3.7% last year, so just a little bit ahead of inflation. Salaries are 15% higher in London normally, and you'll find the same, I think, for any capital city. Salaries are likely to be higher in Warsaw than they would be outside Warsaw. This is also a question you have to ask yourself when you're setting your goals, actually. Where do you want to work? Do you want to work in a big city? Do you want to work in a smaller place? This will impact on the opportunities available to you. This will impact on the salary you can earn. And one unfortunate comment, still in the UK, women are earning an average 20% lower. So one message for the women here today, unfortunately I don't agree with this, but it's not good enough for a woman to be as good as a male candidate. She has to be better to get the same salary. So, how to find a job? Is anybody here actually looking for a job at the moment? Okay. Many of you will be going through agencies, if not now or in the near future at some point in your career. So I've been working for agencies for nearly 10 years now. This is a sort of user's guide to the most basic elements about using a recruitment agency. Before you actually start looking for a job, before you actually start sending your CV, assess the agency and what sort of positions do they work on. Don't waste your time, don't waste their time sending a technical profile to an agency that only does medical positions, hotel positions, financial positions. Choose the correct agency for your skills. What sort of jobs do they offer? What sort of jobs are you looking for? Is it permanent work, a regular job, or do you want the variety of working as a contractor, doing maybe 3-4 months on different projects and then moving on to another job? What sort of clients do they represent? This is really key, because the agency's clients are your future employers. An agency with a good client list can offer you better jobs with more interesting companies than an agency without any real regular clients. Don't be shy about asking recruitment agencies who they work with, who they represent. And the last one, what sort of reputation do they have? Now, branding will play a part in this, companies you hear about in the market will play a part in this, but ask your friends, ask your families. Who have they worked with? What was their experience like? What you should expect from an agency. Now, obviously you want them to find you a job. Not every agency you deal with is going to be able to do that. And it's not always their mistake, but the minimum things, the most basic things you should look for is, are they giving you feedback? If you communicate with them, if you're sending your CV to them, are you getting information back from them? Even if it's only a letter saying, thank you, but we are not interested, at least some sort of feedback, I think, is basic. A company that can't communicate with you, doesn't bother communicating with you, well, maybe they're not very professional, maybe they're not very well organised, but for me, that's a bad sign. A proper briefing about what is the job, what can you expect at interview? Is this an agency that is only going to tell you about offers on the market, send your CV to some companies, maybe hope that something will come through for you, or are they going to work with you? Are they going to help you get that job? Do they understand what you are looking for? Do they understand what their client is looking for? And can they work with you to help you get that job? To tell you exactly what the company is looking for, to brief you properly, to explain what the job is, what the client is, and what you can expect with the interview process. And finally, to be treated as a person, not just as an asset. This is also true, I think, for any managers you'll work with in the future. Before you get to meet an agency, though, you're going to need a CV. Now, there's a lot of information out there on the market about CVs, I think maybe too much. Because a CV has two functions, and in my opinion, only two functions. It's a record of your history, your achievements, your education, who you are, what you do, what you've done in the past. And this, of course, is useful for future employers. This is useful for headhunting agencies, recruitment agencies, to know who you are and what you offer. And also, many companies work on a database model. So if there's something you think is important for a future job, make sure it's mentioned on there. Make sure you have the right keywords so that their database can find you when it needs to. But this is the secondary function of a CV. A CV is there to get you an interview. When you're looking for a job, the CV is not going to find the job. You have to perform in interviews. So the CV's main job is to get you an interview. Always bear this in mind. Average time spent reading a CV is 2 minutes. 2 minutes. A bad CV will probably get about 2 seconds. You have 2 minutes to make an impression. That's 120 seconds. If you're writing a CV, please keep it clear, please keep it simple. This is a picture of a recruiter's desk. A recruiter has a lot of CVs, they are dealing with a lot of people. They don't have a lot of time to spend on any particular individual. Unfortunately, but that's the nature of the business. So please keep it clear, please keep it simple. No crazy fonts, no animations, no colours, no photos of your dog. Something very simple. And you need more than one CV. Almost every job you apply for, you should have a tailored CV for that. Of course, you'll have your template, your basic design, but if you're sending your CV to different employers, think about what that employer is going to be interested in. If you're applying for a position working with .NET, put down all your experience with .NET on that CV so that they think, yes, this is an interesting person to talk about. If you're going for a position with a bank, make sure that anything you mention about your banking experience is there and very clear to see. If you have certification that's relevant to the position, maybe put it on the first page of the CV before anything else. Because again, you have maximum 120 seconds, 2 minutes, to get invited to an interview. If you have achievements or skills to talk about, be specific. Show evidence. Tell them exactly what you have. An example. Don't tell them you have a lot of experience with web technologies. Maybe that just means you stay up all night surfing. It doesn't actually tell them anything. If you want to get a job in web, you might want to say, well, You have 4 years HTML, 2 years XML, 1.5 years Java. Be specific and show exactly what you're selling, exactly what you're offering. And be honest. If you're not honest, it will get found out sooner or later. One small anecdote, I was once looking for a person, for a position. Somebody sent me a CV, a nice CV, and it mentioned he had fluent English. So I asked my assistant to arrange an interview for this guy. This interview lasted 45 seconds, something like that. He didn't speak any English. He lied. And of course it was quite easy for me to find out. The shocking thing about this particular candidate was he was an HR director. So don't make the same mistakes as this guy. If you have something to offer, be clear about that, but do be honest. Don't exaggerate things you can't do. And one final thing, don't forget your contact. I'm always surprised how many CVs I get. They look great, they're interesting, but I can't email this person. I can't phone them. It's very frustrating as a recruiter. And I don't have time to go to the telephone book, find you on Facebook or whatever. I need your contact. If I have a great job for you that you could be in within 1 week's time, I want to call you right now and tell you about this. Any cover letter is not going to get added to a database. Any business card is not going to get added to a database. Put your email and your mobile onto every page of the CV. Oh, and one other note about emails. Make it professional. I can't take you so seriously as a candidate if your email address is sexybunny@gmail.com. It's not a good impression. And I'm not going to invite you for an interview, so if you need a more professional email address, get one. Gmail is free, Hotmail is free. Get an email address you can use just for business. Oh, and with the mobile, if you're giving your mobile number, be ready to answer it. And if you're not ready to talk business, turn it off. Interviews. If you've got a decent CV, you should, sooner or later, get an interview. That's the best picture I could find. That would be quite scary. That would be what's called a panel interview. 5 people, 1 candidate. They can happen. If you're working with a good company or a good agency, they should at least tell you what to expect. It's not nice to go into expecting a meeting of one person and find you're talking to 5. It could happen. If it does happen and they give you your business cards, arrange them on the table in front of you so you know who you're talking to and what their job is. A few tips for interview. I think this is obvious, but it's worth saying again. Make sure you know how to get there and have their phone number in case there's a traffic jam, the bus breaks down, your boat sinks, whatever. Make sure you know where you're going, when you're supposed to be there, and make sure you can let them know if you're going to be late. This is just polite. Make sure you have plenty of time. This means you can relax. You still need to be alert, but make sure you have time. Don't give yourself too much of a challenging schedule. Make sure you have time to get there. Try to be there maybe 10, 15 minutes early, and don't have another interview starting on the other side of town 20 minutes after your first interview. You're going to be stressed, you're going to be sweaty, you're going to be nervous. It's not good, you won't perform well. Better to stay at home and have the day off. We want to see you at your best. Make sure you know what the client's looking for. Think about any questions. Ask yourself, why are you there? What are you doing there? Why do you want the job? Because the client will probably ask you. And if you can't answer this question yourself, for yourself, maybe you shouldn't be talking to that client about that job. Obviously, know something about the company you're applying for. And think about who you're meeting. This is maybe most relevant when you're meeting more senior managers. Google them. I'm serious. Many business people you'll find on sites like LinkedIn, Zing.com, and so on. It will help your confidence because you know something about the person you're meeting. You can try to predict what they're going to be like and what the conversation will be like. If you're very lucky, you might find their webpage. I've found people's personal web pages in the past. I can see their hobbies. I can ask them about their family. Maybe you find that you have a hobby in common. This will let you build rapport, build a conversation with them. It can really help your case. One thing I think a lot of people forget, it's a conversation, not an interrogation. You have to communicate naturally. No yes or no answers. Let the information flow. And don't be negative. We hate negativity in interviews. If your motivation is that you're working for a rubbish company that's going down the toilet, don't say that at the interview. Say you're looking for opportunities with a larger, more stable firm that can offer you better opportunities. Ask intelligent questions. Remember, it's a conversation, not an interrogation. People hire people they like, so try to interact normally. And this is one tip. If you're nervous about a particular interview, if you're nervous because the manager you're meeting has a reputation for being a really tough guy, or you want the job so badly you're scared about making a mistake, ask yourself, what is the worst question they could ask you? What is the worst question in the world they could ask you? Whether it's professional, whether it's personal, doesn't matter. What's the worst question they could ask? Because if you're ready with an answer to this, any other questions should seem relatively easy. But always prepare for your interviews. Nearly finished now. A note on the hiring process. I've got a sort of flow chart here. One thing I want to get across though is it can be more complicated than you're expecting. It can take longer than you're expecting. It can be confusing. Again, if you're working with a good recruitment agency, they should be able to support you through this and to help you through every step. But as we said, review your goals. Know what you're looking for before you go out looking. From these goals, define what sort of company do you want to work for? What sort of agency can help you find this type of job? Send them your CV, we've talked about that. Then, especially from an agency, you can expect what's called a phone screening. Typically this is a 5 or 10 minute phone call from the agency or from the recruiter to establish, yes, this person really exists, this person, we hope, is not a complete idiot. Because maybe it will stop there. If it does, don't worry. You go back to the start and you think about it again. But I'm being negative. Let's assume you go forward in the process. You'll have an interview with a recruiter. Probably, first of all, with the agency, and then with a recruiter from the employer. Again, this could lead to rejection. Tough. It will happen. Don't take it personally. Go straight back to the beginning and start again. I'll be talking about rejection, actually. Also could be refusal. Remember, it's your job. If you take a job with this company, you're going to have to work with these people every day for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years. If it doesn't feel right to you, if it's not interesting for you, reject their offer and go back and look for something else. You pass the interview with the recruiter. You're likely to have an interview with what's called the hiring manager. This is usually the person who will be your boss when you take this job. It's the most important stage of the process, in my opinion, because if you don't like him, if he doesn't like you, there's not much potential for the future. Remember, if you don't want to work with this person, if you can't imagine sharing an office with this person every day, 12 hours a day for the next 2 years, refuse the offer, go back to the beginning and start again. If you continue with this interview, you'll probably meet your future boss's boss. A really long process, it will be your boss's boss's boss, and it can go even higher. But expect to meet other people in the organisation. It might be somebody higher up in the structure, or what seems to happen more often these days, it could be somebody else who would be working with you like a colleague, somebody who might be at the same level, who will also be assessing you and whether they want to work with you. Again, you can refuse or they can reject at any stage, but every interview is important. Never feel that because you've had 5 interviews with one company, you've basically got the job and you can relax and not take the interview seriously. There's one company I know, they have what they call a 5 green card system. You have to have minimum 5 interviews with 5 different managers, and everyone has to say yes. You can have 4 positive interviews, 1 negative, and this company will say, no, we don't want you, go away forever. So you've been through all these interviews, you have a job offer maybe. Depending on the position, depending on the company's policies, maybe there's a chance to negotiate. You should already know, what do you want to do? How much do you expect to be paid? Where do you want to work? All of these things. Now the offer will normally come from the agency. They will be instructed by the employer to make you an offer for a certain date, a certain time, a certain salary, and so on. Sometimes it can even happen they offer you a position you didn't actually ask for at the beginning, but they can see you fitting in another type of job. Keep an open mind, maybe this could be a good opportunity for you. And these offers, sometimes, not always, sometimes they're negotiable. If you're going to talk about salary, be serious, don't waste people's time hoping to get a couple of extra euros a month. This does not go down well. And even if the job offer has been made to you, it can be taken away again. So be very careful at this stage. And don't feel you have to accept the offer if you don't like it. Remember, if you come back and negotiate, not all clients will like that. It can still be cancelled. One thing I want to get across with this is it can be a fairly complicated system. It's not just a question of having one meeting with a company and both sides say yes or no. There are many steps to it. Also, if you're looking for a job, don't think you can only go through one process at a time. If you're a good candidate, if you're in demand, you might have 5 of these processes running at the same time. You can be open about this, it just shows you a good candidate. But it can be confusing. It might be an idea to make notes and keep records and keep a diary of what's going on, so you know exactly where you are with your job search. And I hope at the end of this process, you're hired, you have your first position, you have a great career ahead of you, but do remember, it's your career, it's your responsibility, ultimately, you're in charge. So go out there, have fun, find a great job, and good luck.